Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and Merry Christmas Eve Eve is day 23 of Bookmas. So, yeah, this has been such a fun ride. I'm still behind, but based on the books I have today, I think I can get caught up. So, yesterday, my husband and I went ahead and just read the last two sections of Christmas Eve love story, so that way we didn't have to worry about it on Christmas Eve. I ended up giving this 2 stars. One, there was a lot of editing issues. At one point, Brayden became Brandon. The chapter we read yesterday, or the last part anyway, the last section, we read the last two, but the last section, they made it to Christmas Day. And Brayden is talking to his mom, and he's like, she's like, with the storm, I don't think you should come visit. Like, there's no transportation. He's like, I can walk to you. It's fine. And then all of a sudden, he's like, so what time should I come tomorrow? Like, what time is dinner? And she's like, whenever you get here. And then he starts walking to his mom's that day. So it suddenly switches to tomorrow in their conversation when he's going to visit today on Christmas Day. So things like that, and then just typo errors like heard instead of heart, and it was supposed to be like her heart pounded and it was heard, and some other issues here as well that we read yesterday. That was just like, by that point I was rolling my eyes. The Groundhog Day trope is not done well. She's both very inconsistent and very repetitive at the same time, which I did read the other book by this author, which we'll talk about in a second, and I noticed she does that. Like, so I think the repetitiveness was more like her writing style. Like, she'll say something and immediately say it again, either the exact same phrasing or in a slightly different way, but she's saying the exact same thing. So she's just like pounding it into your brain. Um, and then like some of the Groundhog Day stuff, like those kids were so freaking annoying, and she kept doing that same part over and over again. And then other times she was really inconsistent, like with Veronica Lawson showing up, which is the owner of Lawson's Finest, where Annie works. That, was very inconsistent. Sometimes she would show up, sometimes she wouldn't. And I get like little things change throughout. And she also seemed like the character and or the author, like either she made that character that way on purpose, or the author doesn't really realize how time loops work either. Because she kept like, well, even if I can't get out of this time loop, I want to get Brayden out of it so he can have Christmas with his mom. The time loop is everybody you're interacting with. It's not just you. Like, you kick him out of the time loop, it's not just going to be you in the time loop, you know, like what, in a ghost town, so that like didn't really make sense. There's amnesia, which I get the amnesia aspect to an extent, but he doesn't remember Christmas Eve at all. And so I was like, you had Christmas Eve, like, come on. So there was just like little things that just didn't really make sense. Very repetitive and very inconsistent at the same time. Like, different times, different things are happening, and it's not like she changed it, you know. And like certain things would change because, the magic or whatever, which is fine. Like, that made sense. But yeah, didn't make a lot of sense. Very, very repetitive. Not a good example of Groundhog Day trope. Which is sad. I did like the characters, except towards the end, she started adding like unnecessary drama with Annie getting mad at Brayden for not thinking of their futures. Like, he doesn't even remember the days. Like, come on. And then she'd flip flop and think Brayden's mad at her because he's stuck in this time loop. And it's just like unnecessary drama. And yeah, 2 stars on this. I was kind of very disappointed about that, but it's done now. And so I'm glad we did read it last night, so it didn't put us in a sour mood, because my husband was over it too. And so it didn't put us in a sour mood for Christmas Eve. And then I didn't start this, so I did chores all day. My husband ended up getting home a little bit early. And so I started this one after I was done with chores, probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then, of course, I had to feed the dogs and all that good stuff. So I didn't get to this one till a little bit later in the evening. I want to say after 7. And this one, I love the movie While You Were Sleeping, which I read the author's note seeing if that was the inspiration behind this book. And she doesn't make any mention of that, but I could pick out key points from that movie while you were sleeping that were in here. So I'm pretty sure that was the inspiration, even though the author doesn't mention that, which I love that movie. And so I was kind of in this place where I'm like, I'm excited for this because I love that movie and I think I'm going to like the plot line of this. But I'm nervous because I did not like Christmas Eve love story. I thought the writing was really bad in that. The editing was much better in this. I think I caught like one typo, which that happens. Like I can understand that. So the editing was better. But again, the author would just like harp on things. So the whole premise of this is you have two brothers, and in this one, Juan asks Katie to come to Christmas dinner as his girlfriend. So a fake dating trope. But then Juan gets in an accident and Katie basically saves his life, but he ends up in a coma because of the accident. Which, while you were sleeping, he's in the train accident, on the train tracks, and she ends up saving him from the train, but he hits his head and he's in a coma. And so the family is like latches onto her, and they own this winery in this smaller town. Which it's weird because it says it's like a smaller town, but yet like this family, like they don't seem like. On one hand, it seems small, which I get they're like the class difference, like maybe. So on one hand, it seems small townish, but in another, because of the class difference, I guess. Like she knows who this family is, but she's never seen Mateo. Well, I mean, if it's that small of a town, like yeah, he's not on like the social media, and he doesn't show his face there. But if it's this small town, like you should have seen him around and you should have met him. So that part didn't really make sense. But they have a small town and they're like a big family. They own this, winery, but it's having financial difficulties. So she goes and she ends up meeting Mateo and really having a connection. And like she just, was all about like she had fantasies of starting to date Juan. Um, and that got really repetitive as far as harping on like, oh, but he's in a coma and I can't fall for his brother. And same thing with Mateo, like that's my brother's girl, like very repetitive. And I found like in this one it was more obvious because obviously I read it in one evening. But she would say something and then immediately turn around and say the exact same thing. So it's like you're getting very repetitive about the conflict. We know Juan's in a coma. You don't have to harp on that. We know you're having feelings for his brother. You don't have to harp on that. And then like back and forth, like should I tell his family? Which again, you're gonna have those thoughts. It just wasn't done well, you know. And so that was really frustrating. I ended up giving this 4 stars because I really love the characters. I love the family. Like you've got a quirky family with Abuela, especially. Like Abuela was awesome. And so I love the family, and I love, like I said, one of my favorite movies. So I love the setup of this whole story. Is just so frustrating. It's like we readers are not dumb. We understand what you're saying. We understand what's happening. You don't have to harp on it. And it did smooth out towards the end, so I did appreciate that. But it was just frustrating because this would have been a 5 star read for sure if the author hadn't just like talked to me like I was stupid and didn't know what was going on, and just, set it out and then progress the story instead of, you know, oh, the conflict with one, and oh, the family, like they need to find a way to save it, which yes, they do. But it was just the way it was done. It's like, you already set this up. We already know what's going on. So don't harp on it. But I did finish this, and this is one I can see myself rereading. As much as that irritated me, I really love these characters, and I really love the storyline. So I can see myself revisiting this one, where this one's probably going to go to a little free library somewhere. But yeah, so that was that one. So Ginny Baird, I don't think she's an author for me, just because that really gets under my skin. So unless there's one that I just really like the setup, like this one, I probably won't pick up this author again. Then I did start 12 Days of Mistletoe by Jen Atkinson. I read 63 pages last night, and then I read a little bit more, so I'm now, this morning, so I'm now 106 pages in. So this one, I was a little bit worried going in because of, on the back it says this dog is an emotional support pup. In the story, she says it's a service dog. Those are very different. And she has some things right. It's really frustrating. Like, I'm 100 pages in. Love the characters. Again, you have a quirky meddling grandma, which I love. Um, and I love the characters. So far, like, they're just barely starting. It's again a fake dating trope, and they're barely kind of getting started with that. But I really like their chemistry together. I enjoy that. And the dog is a golden doodle, which made me roll my eyes. I hate designer breeds. Like, and that whole trend. I will not go on a rant about that because I'm going to rant about something else. So she has a golden doodle as her service dog, a mini golden doodle, I might add. Um, and some things she got right, like she mentions like the dog's trained, very well trained, like it took a solid year for the training, which that can vary depending on the dog's age. Like if it's a younger puppy, it's going to take longer. If it's a bit of an older dog, it might take a little bit less time. But she mentions that, but she's like mentioning things and she's not going into detail. And it's really frustrating because she's like back and first I was like, is it actually a service dog? Like, because it wasn't really clear. She's just like, that's my service dog. And so it wasn't really clear at first, like, is it actually a service dog or is it an emotional support dog that you're confused about what the difference is? And it's like the author did the bare minimum research, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so she did the bare minimum, and then the thing she has right, she's not actually explaining. And so that's really frustrating. And so the whole setup is she has this dog in no pet's household. And then you have Elliot, so you have Bonnie and Elliot. Bonnie has this dog in no pet's household, which, because of the Fair Housing Act, like, if you have a disability, you can have animals in a no pet place with the proper paperwork, not the online stuff that you can just buy outright. And so it's really annoying, like the setup of this. And I was try to just like, okay, like that's the setup, like just go with it. But she's hiding this dog and she's like basically bucking the system. And I'm like, and she just keeps, well, she's such a good girl, it doesn't matter. Which people who fake service animals use that excuse all the time. Well, they're so well behaved, it doesn't matter. Like, it does matter. You're making it harder for the people who legitimately put in the work and have actual service animals. And so that was annoying. And then there's laws, and so he's like telling her, "I'm going to evict you," but he doesn't realize it. And then once he learns, he's like, "Oh, well, if I had known that, would have been a different story." And then the grandmother learns, who's meddling in their situation, and she's like, well, a deal's a deal. So even though now I know she's a service dog, like and she mentions like, the policy's outdated, laws have changed for the better. So I appreciate that. But then she goes on to still blackmail her and be like, you're still gonna do like, the whole blackmail part is like, not only the fake dating, because she kind of agreed to that with Elliot in the first place, Bonnie did, but then the grandmother gets involved and she's like, you have to make it real, so you have to kiss. And so she's blackmailing, like, he can't buy the apartments unless he fake dates for the 12 days to Christmas, and she can't have her dog, which you just admitted, like, the laws have changed. That's illegal. Like, that is illegal. Not only are you denying her access for her dog that she needs because of a disability, like, you're blackmailing her into that. That's illegal. And so I can't get behind that. And then she's like I said, she gives out information. So at one point, she's like talking about, and this is where I don't think she fully did her research, because she's like, service dogs, cats, and horses. And again, she doesn't explain. So service dogs, cats, and horses. Service animals are only dogs and miniature horses, not like full-size horses. Because he's like, horses, and she's like, horses. And like moves on. It's like, you should have explained miniature horses. Like, you're not going to bring a full-size horse as a service animal. Miniature horses. And cats are not allowed to be service animals. They can be emotional support. So again, I think she only partially did her research. And it's frustrating for me, and I'm so upset by it because there is so much misinformation out there. There's those companies that sell those fake certificates, which are fake. Like, they're not real, and people use them and they buck the system and they make it harder for legitimate people who have, a legitimate service animal that has gone through the system. But yeah, cats cannot be service animals. They can be emotional support animals. And there's a big difference between the two. Emotional support, that person has a disability and a need for that animal, but the animal is not required for training and they can be in no pet household. A service animal is task trained to mitigate a disability, and in this case, the dog is. So she is a legitimate service animal, like, because she has really bad anxiety, and so when she, like, you know, is getting anxious, dog alerts her, which is a task, and she alerts her to take her meds when she needs to if she's getting overly anxious. And so the dog is actually a legitimate service animal, but the author clearly did not fully do the research, and the things she's getting right, she's not actually explaining. Um, and so yeah, it's really, really frustrating. But it's a shame because I really like the characters. Um, and so far I kinda like the story, even though, like, forcing them to kiss is a bit ridiculous of grandma. I really like the story. I am gonna continue it, but I'm definitely only giving this 2 stars. Regardless of how much I like the story itself and the characters because of the misinformation. I cannot give it more than that, and I'm gonna put that in my review. Like, that is such a big problem. Fake service animals, and the misinformation regarding service animal versus emotional support animals versus therapy dog, which she does use her service dog as a therapy dog as well, which is fine. Um, there's just such misinformation and people taking advantage. And so, like, I think as an author, she had a responsibility to not do the bare minimum research, and actually understand. Like, just looking at the actual American Disabilities Act would give you the correct information that you need. Uh, so yeah, that's a big no in my book. So I'm gonna finish it, and it is only getting 2 stars. Because even though I love the characters and this actual story plot line so far, I can't give it more than that with that misinformation. Like, it just pisses me off so much. And another thing, she was like, that really got under my skin. She came out, like, for the first time using the front door with her animal because they made the deal. And she has her service dog vest, and she runs into a couple of her neighbors and they pet the dog. And she's like, most people avoid me when she has her service dog vest on, which is actually not the case. Like, people, like, see a service dog and they lose their mind. I have Nidra. She's I kind of semi-retired her because she was getting kind of grumpy. Um, but she's my service dog, and people just lose their mind. Like, they don't avoid you and try not to pet her like they should when they see the service dog vest, that says don't pet. And she's like, but she loves attention so much, like, I don't care. And she should have explained, like, so, because it's fine. Each handler is different, and each dog does different tasks for their individual handler. It just depends on the disability. So it is fine to allow your service dog to be pet, but there's kind of, again, people should always ask. She should have put that information. Like, you shouldn't just go up to a service dog when you see it wearing a vest. You should ask and talk to the handler. Don't talk to the dog, talk to the handler and ask if it's okay. And if they say yes, then that's great. And if they say no, don't get hurt about it. Like, the dog is there to do a job, not to be pet by everybody. They get plenty of off time where they get love and such. So yeah, again, just not fully explaining things and kind of giving misinformation. Yes, sometimes it is okay to pet a service dog, but only after talking to the handler, not the dog, and asking. And then if the handler says yes, and most handlers will have, like, either take off the gear or have a release word. Like, I always make Deidre set because little old people love Deidre. So I would always make her sit, and then I would release her to go get pet, essentially. So again, just misinformation. So really frustrated with this one. Only will be 2 stars, but I do need to finish it. But there's, like, a lot of text messages in here as well. Um, and the font's pretty big, so like it's reading really fast. I have no doubt I'll be able to get through this uh, early in the day. And then, unfortunately, I did not touch at all yesterday's pick, which was Christmas Presents by Lisa Unger. Again, this is only like 258 pages, so it's going to be a fast read. It is a thriller. It's a little smaller, and again, the font's pretty good size. So this is going to be a fast read. So I'm really confident I can at least get through a good chunk of this, if not read it fully. But we also tonight have the last section in Mystery for Christmas, which is edited by Cynthia Manson. Excuse me. So the last story is called Who Killed Father Christmas by Patricia Moyes. And this one is only 15 pages, so it should be quick. And that's the last book or last story that we're reading for Abbott. We already finished Christmas Eve love story, and so this will be it. Well, after this, we'll be done with this one. I'll definitely give you my thoughts on the last story tomorrow. This one I'm leaning towards a 2-star. There were a lot of misses here for me. Some of them I did enjoy a little bit, but even those ones didn't really wow me. There was more misses than hits in here. But we'll be reading the last story tonight. So we have those three. And we have today's pick, which, like I said, I'm pretty confident is a Richard Paul Evans because I still have one more of that author, and this is a hardback. And the other one's way too skinny and tall. Tomorrow's pick, which I have no clue what that one is. So I do know this is a Richard Paul Evans, but I have no clue what the title is or what it's about. So let's go ahead and open it up and find that out. Let's see here. Well, almost. I almost had it all the way up. Just think that last section didn't want to come open. All right. Dun, 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 dun. Moment of Truth. And I'm pretty sure this one's going to be a standalone. They said I had 2 part of a series and 2 standalones. So it was right side up. I thought it was upside down. A Winter Dream by Richard Paul Evans. So let's see here. This one says Joseph Jacobson is the 12th of 13 siblings, all of whom are employed by their father's successful Colorado advertising company. But underneath the success runs a poisonous undercurrent of jealousy. Joseph is his father's favorite and the focus of his brother's envy and hatred. When the father seems ready to anoint Joseph as his heir, the brothers make their move, forcing Joseph from the company and his Denver home, severing his ties to his parents and ending his relationship with his soon-to-be fiancée. Alone and lonely, Joseph must start a new life. Joseph joins a Chicago advertising agency where his creativity helps him advance high up in the company. He also finds hope for lasting love with April, a kind woman with a secret. However, all secrets hold consequences, and when Joseph learns the truth about April's past, his world is again turned upside down. Finally, Joseph must confront his own difficult past in order to make his dreams for the future come true. A Winter Dream is an ingenious modern retelling of the Old Testament story of Joseph and the coat of many colors by a master of the holiday novel. So yeah, as soon as I started reading, I'm like, yep, that's based on that. So yeah, I enjoyed the other 3 books I read by this author. Like I said, I still have another stack to go that I found at the thrift store. So this one is only looks like 266 pages. So yeah, so we have 266, 258, and I have just over 200 pages left to go of whatchamacallit, the 12 days of mistletoe. So this is what I'm working on today. I did all my chores yesterday. So after this video goes up, all I have left to do is read, which is fantastic. And then we just have one more day left. And so tomorrow, like I said, my husband put a really skinny book, which I love him for, and I'm definitely going to tell him to do that in the future. So that way I have a skinny book on Christmas Eve, since that's when we celebrate with his family. So I'll have that book, and then we just started this last year. I read it multiple years. Started reading it aloud with his mother last year. So we're going to do that again this year. So I'll have A Christmas Carol, and then whatever tomorrow's pick is. But I will be back tomorrow to let you know if I was successful in reading these books today, and see what that last book is. I am so excited. We finally almost made it to Christmas. Christmas Eve. I figured that we're there. So yeah, I'm going to get this video up and then I'm going to get tucked in because I got a lot of reading still to do, which I'm very much looking forward to. So I will see you guys tomorrow.